Over the years, I've played a lot of great indie games. Over this time, there's been 3 in particular that have shone brighter than the rest, and secured a special place in my heart. If Pokemon has taught us anything, it's that in each generation, there's always a legendary trio. And it's these 3 games, at least for me, that form that legendary trio for indie games. Each of them offers a truly magical experience that you'll be hard-pressed to find anywhere else, which honestly was a bit of a bummer once you beat them and wanted more, but you know what they say.
Arm phaser banks and photon torpedoes.
Wait, that's not the right quote.
'Tis better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all.
That's better. As you've probably already figured out by the thumbnail, I'm of course talking about Hollow Knight, Katana Zero, and Hyper Light Drifter. These games aren't exactly going to be a revelation to some of you, as all of these are very successful, and rightfully so. But allow me to share with you just what makes these games so special. Hollow Knight really caught me by surprise. I'd heard good things about it, enough to give it a try even, but based on what I'd seen, I wasn't sure it's the kind of game I'd fall in love with. The cartoony art style, which for the record I now think's amazing, was at the time something my brain associated with more arcadey games that aren't known for their stories or depth. Luckily, this isn't the case for Hollow Knight at all. The combat and movement, while at first feels fairly basic, is surprisingly very deep and has a lot to it. For example, striking the exact frame an enemy hits results in a parry, negating all damage. Downward striking an enemy from above will push you back up, meaning you can bounce off them and continue attacking in what's referred to as pogoing. Every strike causes backwards recoil, which needs to be taken into consideration if you want to maintain correct spacing. All these things and more make for a system that's easy to learn and hard to master, and lays the foundation that makes fighting the game's 46 unique bosses so damn memorable. There's nothing like that feeling of finally conquering a boss that's been beating you down for the last 30 minutes. And yes, I'll say it now, this game can be pretty difficult at times. But unless you end up somewhere a bit earlier than intended, which, due to the non-linear nature of the game, can happen, then it's pretty well paced and warms you up to the harder stuff. Take it from me, eventually you'll have that eureka moment where something just clicks and you'll start playing like a Giga Chad. Other aspects of this game that really sealed the deal for me was the charm system and RPG elements. The charm system allows you to equip charms that will grant various effects and boons. Think of this like equipment from other games. From creating a stink cloud around the player that deals damage, to ones that increase the range of your nail. Basically, this means you get to heavily modify the way you play the game. Want to play like a swordsman? Slap on long nail for range, quick slash for attack speed, and unbreakable strength for nail damage. Want to play like a mage? Slap on spell twister to reduce spell costs, shaman stone for more spell damage, and soul catcher to generate more soul, Hollow Knight's equivalent of mana. And these are just some more basic ideas. With well over 40 charms, the possibilities are endless. Oh, and shameless plug, I have a super in-depth charm guide, which I spent way too long making. Go check that out. As for the RPG elements, well, there's money to farm, weapon upgrades to collect, spells to find, health and mana upgrades, and loads of things to keep you occupied. So alright, the gameplay is great. This is probably one of the most important aspects of a good game, but that alone isn't enough to make it one of the all-time greats. Hollow Knight also happens to have really cool lore and an incredible world to explore. Now, if you had told me before I'd played the game how much I'd get invested into a dying kingdom of the insect equivalent of Nightmare Before Christmas, I would have said you're crazy. But in your travels, you'll see so many different kinds of enemies and characters, not to mention strange, unexplained things in the world, that you'll find yourself becoming intrigued and wanting answers. This also goes for how the game's main story is told. Without any spoilers, your main goal remains really vague until pretty late into the game. Even after I beat it, I had to Google a YouTube video of someone a bit smarter than me to fully wrap my head around every little detail after the credits rolled. But the mystery and vagueness is actually a good thing. It keeps you asking questions and hungry for answers, which fuels another big part of the game, exploration. The world of Hollow Knight is huge. Each time I thought I'd seen it all, another new zone would open up and prove me wrong. Now, for me personally, this aspect of exploring and getting lost is one of the more enjoyable parts of the game. But I know that's not for everyone, and probably the most common I quit posts about this game I see on Reddit is always related to new players feeling lost and overwhelmed. If you're one of these people, I say this.
Stop it. Get some help.
With the exception of one particular area later on in the game, it's very easy to get lost and confused in the first zone or two, particularly the forest area. I recall spending hours walking in circles. This is due to 2 things. For starters, it's a fairly hard zone to navigate, and has many branching paths. Get it? Branching? And the other reason is simply you'll be new to the game and not really understand how to explore efficiently. If you are one of these people and find yourself frustrated at this section, trust me, it only gets easier from here, and it's well worth persevering through. Also, while Hollow Knight's best played blind, If it's an option between you not playing at all versus you looking at a guide for some direction, there's no shame at taking a peek. Just be very wary about spoilers, as some of the best moments in the game can be ruined if you glance at the wrong thing. And last of all is of course the game's soundtrack. It ties all of this together and really sets the mood of this somber world perfectly. I'm gonna be honest, explaining why music is good in games isn't a strength of mine, but from the epic boss fight tracks to the calming melodies of Dirtmouth, there always seems to be a perfect song to enhance the atmosphere, and it makes the overall experience just that much better as a result. It's hard to encapsulate every little memorable experience I've had in my 70-hour playthrough, but no other game had so many high moments and that thrill of exploring such a strange and interesting world. I think Moist Critical summed it up well in his Hollow Knight video description. This is the greatest bug game of all time. I mean, A Bug's Life for PlayStation 1 was pretty good though. Moving on to Katana Zero. This is the shortest game of the three, taking an average of around 5 hours to beat. But what it lacks in length, it makes up for in intensity and good old-fashioned fun. In this game, you'll play as a katana-wielding hitman working for the government. The core gameplay loop has you speaking to your psychiatrist, who doubles as your government contact between levels, and who gives you your assassination targets. So convenient. From there, you'll proceed to brutally slaughter everyone in the level who stands in your way, leaving a path of utter destruction in your wake. But there's more. You see, Zero, the character you play as, isn't just your run-of-the-mill katana-wielding weeb. Zero is what is known as a null. Basically a person specially selected and trained from childhood due to their affinity with Chronos. What's Chronos, you ask?
It's heroin.
This is a top-secret combat drug that gives Zero a few key abilities. First is precognition. This is the game's in-game explanation of why you can respawn if you happen to die. You see, this drug gives you psychic powers. Each attempt you don't succeed is actually just being played out in your character's head using these powers, until a successful outcome is found, in which case that was the attempt that really did happen. This doesn't really change gameplay much compared to a normal respawn system, but it does wonders for immersion, and since your character retains his memory of each failed attempt, it can create some really wacky scenarios, which I won't go into due to not wanting to spoil it for you. The second ability this drug gives you is the ability to slow down time. You brought a sword to a gunfight and are about to get shot? No worries, just slow down time, deflect the bullet, and be on your way. Get yourself into a sticky situation surrounded by countless enemies and hazards? No worries, just slow down time so you have a moment to react and make the right decision. Not subscribed to this channel? No worries, just slow down time and hit the subscribe button and bell so you don't miss any new content, and so on. Early on, you'll be using this ability quite often, and honestly, hearing the ring of the bullet bouncing off your katana never gets old. But the cool thing is, everything you can do in slow-mo, you can also do in normal time. Sure, it's a hell of a lot harder, but there's nothing stopping you from deflecting a bullet in real time. And the first time you do, you're gonna feel like a god. It's so satisfying, in fact, I often find myself stubbornly ignoring my slow-mo ability, which, since I'm not nearly as good at the game as I think I am, results in me dying a good 21 times in a row before beating a stage. But hey, when I do pull it off on the 22nd attempt, it's all worth it for that dopamine hit. Even without trying to look cool without slow motion, you'll be dying a lot in this game. 99% of enemies will kill you in one shot. The remaining 1% will knock you over, and then kill you in one shot. This is balanced out by the fact you also kill them in one shot, resulting in some super volatile gameplay. Because regardless of how well you're currently playing, you're always just one slip up away from death. And this makes the combat feel super intense and high stakes. Sure, dying a lot sounds pretty annoying, but once you receive your surprise new orifice, you can be back in the action and having another attempt within around 2 seconds with how fast the respawning is. This, and there's only really ever one screen worth of action between checkpoints, so you're never losing much progress at a time. Another thing this game does well is its dialogue. Seriously, I've never seen such expressive text-based dialogue. Both the sounds and stylizations they use on specific words really give it a huge impact and make it a lot of fun to read through. This combined with the story, which will have you asking more and more questions as it progresses, as well as it getting darn right trippy due to the side effect of your drugs, makes for a truly unique experience and elevates it far beyond your average side-scrolling 2D game. And last but not least, we have Hyper Light Drifter. This one is a top-down action-adventure game where you'll play as this sick little blue guy known simply as the Drifter. And when I say sick, I don't mean cool. No, the Drifter is afflicted by a mystery illness that results in violent coughing fits and even causes him to pass out and hallucinate sometimes. Sword and blaster in hand, you'll set off exploring a stunningly beautiful post-apocalyptic pixel art world in the hopes of finding a cure. All you have to go on at the start is your strange visions, which are haunted by a black entity that seems to really enjoy killing you. After a particularly vivid vision at the start of the game, followed by an equally bad coughing fit, you're rescued by a stranger who takes you back to his home in the main town. From here, you wake up and have to more or less figure out where to go from there. Now, if all you know is Skyrim quest markers telling you exactly where to go and what to do, similar to Hollow Knight, you might have some pain points here. Once again, all I can say is relax, take a breath, and just explore. There are no wrong answers or incorrect ways to go. 3 or 4 areas are free to explore in any order, and while some are harder than others, halfway through each area, you'll find a teleporter, which will allow fast travel, so you can always go try another section if one gets too hard. In fact, Hyper Light Drifter has almost no text in it at all. The entire story and backstory is primarily told through the environment itself, from giant fallen titans to derelict labs and ruined cities. It really is incredible how well a story can be told without words, and Hyper Light Drifter pushes this to another level. There's a certain vagueness when telling the story in this manner, as a lot can be left to interpretation. But this actually feeds into the mystery and, for me at least, enriches the story, giving a certain hunger for knowledge that wouldn't otherwise be there. I mentioned the Elder Scrolls games before, and I'll use it as a comparison again, this time in a positive way. One of the biggest mysteries within the Elder Scrolls universe is the disappearance of the dwarves and exactly what happened to them. Loads of theories have been thought up, and just the general intrigue about this topic, due to leaving the answer unknown, is far more interesting and compelling than if they simply told us what happened. And this vagueness is used everywhere in Hyper Light Drifter. Even the NPCs speak in pictures, showing flashbacks of events in their stories. It's a really unique and streamlined way to do it, and I'm actually a big fan of it when it's used well. Since visuals are so important to tell the story in this game, this of course results in a beautifully detailed world. The game genuinely has some of the most beautiful pixel art I've ever seen, and every inch of the map has something interesting and unique to look at. Add in the iconic soundtrack, one of my favourite soundtracks in any game, the impact this world will have on you will stay with you for years to come. No other game hits me quite like this one. There's this unique mixture of bright colour and carnage, all brought to life by tranquil yet ominous soundtracks. I mean, just look at some of these scenes. Hyper Light's combat doesn't let down either, and feels silky smooth and very fluent. You can dash, use your sword, as well as blaster and grenades. Melee strikes generate energy for your blaster, and encourages a balance of using the two. And additional upgrades and abilities can be purchased by spending gear bits which are found throughout your travels. Hyper Light Drifter is somewhat notorious for being a difficult game, but honestly, if you take it slow and learn how each enemy behaves, it's really not that bad, outside of a few areas that are intended to challenge you. Hyper Light Drifter is fairly short and will probably take around 8 hours to beat for new players, but lock yourself in a quiet room, turn the lights off, the speakers up, and let yourself be immersed in the truly amazing atmosphere the game offers. And I promise you this, it'll be one you look back on fondly. Thanks for listening to me babble for the last 13 minutes. It's hard to put into words all the cool memories and special moments that made me love these games so much, and I only hope I've done them justice. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.